Part 3. 13 colonies are born. Hook. From wilderness to towns. Picture this. The dense forests echo with the sounds of axes and hammers, smoke rising from small chimneys, and rivers alive with canoes and fishermen. Life is raw, unpredictable, but full of opportunity. This is not Europe. This is the edge of the world, and humans are carving homes from wilderness. Chapter 11. Life in the Colonies. By the mid-1600s, 13 English colonies stretched along the eastern seaboard. New England colonies, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire. Middle colonies, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware. Southern colonies, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Every colony had its character, shaped by geography, climate, and settlers' beliefs. In New England, life was centered around town meetings and churches. Winters were harsh, but communities were tight-knit. Education was important. Reading the Bible was a daily necessity. In the middle colonies, diversity reigned. Dutch, Swedish, English, and German settlers lived alongside Quakers and Catholics. Trade flourished, cities grew, and ports buzzed with activity. In the South, plantations stretched across fertile land. Tobacco, rice, and indigo became cash crops. The economy relied heavily on enslaved Africans, creating deep social and moral divides that would haunt the colonies for centuries. Chapter 12. Faith and Governance. Religion influenced nearly every aspect of life. Puritans in Massachusetts enforced moral codes. Quakers in Pennsylvania preached tolerance. Catholics in Maryland sought refuge from persecution. Yet, governance was evolving. Colonists held local assemblies, elected representatives, and debated laws. These early forms of self-government would sow the seeds of independence. Chapter 13. Survival and Hardship. Life in the colonies was brutal. Winters brought frostbite and starvation. Diseases like dysentery, smallpox, and influenza were constant threats. Conflicts with Native Americans erupted, often over land or misunderstandings. Yet the colonists adapted. They learned new farming techniques, hunted local game, and built settlements that could withstand storms and raids. Chapter 14. Slavery and Labor. In the southern colonies, enslaved Africans were forced to work plantations. Their labor created wealth, but also deep social and moral divides that would haunt the colonies for centuries. Chapter 15. Trade and Economy. Trade connected the colonies to Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean. Ships carried timber, tobacco, rice, and furs to Europe, returning with manufactured goods and sometimes enslaved people. Mercantilism governed these exchanges. Colonists were restricted in trade, forced to buy expensive goods from England, which created growing resentment. Chapter 16. Seeds of Identity. By the late 1600s, the colonists were beginning to see themselves not just as English subjects, but as a new people. They spoke English, yes, but their experience was unique. They survived harsh winters, negotiated with Native Americans, farmed new lands, and created governments on the frontier. A sense of independence and resilience was growing, quietly, imperceptibly. Part 4. Britain tightens its grip. Hook. The king's eyes turn west. Imagine sitting by a roaring fireplace in London, counting profits from sugar, tobacco, and timber shipped across the Atlantic. You are the king, and your empire stretches far. But there is a problem. The colonies across the ocean are growing stronger, freer, and less obedient. You want control. You want taxes. You want loyalty. This desire for power will ignite sparks that can't be contained. Chapter 17. The Mercantile Chains. England's colonies were valuable, not just for land, but for trade. The government imposed laws to ensure the colonies served the mother country. Navigation acts restricted trade to English ships. Colonists had to export certain goods only to England. Imported goods from other countries were taxed or forbidden. The colonists grumbled but largely complied, for now. Chapter 18. Post-War Debt and New Taxes. The French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, left Britain with massive debt. The king looked to the colonies for help. Sugar Act, 1764, taxed sugar and molasses. Stamp Act, 1765, required colonists to pay for printed materials. Suddenly, the settlers felt the pinch. Taxation without representation became a rallying cry. Chapter 19. Protests and Unity. Colonists were angry but resourceful. Town meetings and pamphlets spread ideas of resistance. Groups like the Sons of Liberty formed. They staged protests, boycotts, and sometimes violent resistance. Even more important, colonies started talking to each other. For the first time, a sense of pan-colonial identity was forming. Chapter 20. The Townshend Acts and Rising Tension. In 1767, Britain introduced the Townshend Acts, taxing glass, paint, paper, and tea. Resistance grew stronger. Women joined boycotts, refusing to buy imported goods. Merchants and traders found creative ways to smuggle products. Tension escalated. A spark was about to ignite the powder keg. Chapter 21. Seeds of Rebellion. By the 1770s, the colonies were more united than ever. They shared newspapers, letters, and ideas. They questioned their loyalty to a king thousands of miles away. Yet most colonists were still hesitant. They wanted justice, not war. But history was moving fast. The British government's insistence on control was colliding with a new American identity forged in hardship, adaptation, and resilience. Part 5. When Words Became Weapons. Hook, ink, and fire. Sometimes war is not fought with guns and cannons. Sometimes it starts with words. Pamphlets, newspapers, and speeches can ignite hearts as much as bullets. This is the story of how ideas became weapons. Chapter 22. The Power of the Press. Colonial newspapers flourished in the 1760s and 1770s. Writers like Samuel Adams used pamphlets to expose British abuses and inspire resistance. One fiery pamphlet could stir anger across a colony. Words traveled faster than troops could march. Chapter 23. The Boston Massacre. On a cold night in March 1770, tensions boiled over. British soldiers fired into a crowd in Boston, killing 5 colonists. The event was labeled the Boston Massacre, and it spread like wildfire through colonial newspapers. Propaganda turned tragedy into outrage. Patriots demanded justice. Loyalties were tested. Chapter 24. Tea and Rebellion. In 1773, Britain tried another attempt to assert control, the Tea Act. Colonists saw it as an insult. Merchants, frustrated with taxes and trade restrictions, took action. On December 16, 1773, the Boston Tea Party erupted. Colonists, disguised as Native Americans, boarded ships and dumped tea into the harbor. It was a symbolic act, a statement that words alone were no longer enough. Chapter 25. From Protest to Unity. The British responded with harsh measures, the Intolerable Acts, aiming to punish Massachusetts. Instead of fear, the acts created unity. Colonists across the 13 colonies communicated, shared ideas, and coordinated support. The colonies were learning a new language, the language of resistance. Chapter 26. Ideas that Burned Bright. Pamphlets, sermons, and town meetings spread revolutionary ideas. No taxation without representation. rights of Englishmen, self-governance and liberty. Words were shaping a new identity, American. The stage was set. The colonies were ready to take the next step from protest to open rebellion.